You know that feeling, right? That little nudge, that quiet whisper in the back of your mind? Or sometimes that really loud, nagging voice telling you what you should or shouldn't do. We've all been there. But what is that voice, actually?
I mean, really think about it. Is it some kind of divine compass pointing you toward a higher truth? Or is it more like a psychological ghost, just an echo of your parents and your teachers? Well, let's get into it, because two of the most brilliant minds in history had completely opposite ideas about this.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we're going to journey way back to the 13th century and meet Thomas Aquinas to hear about his divine compass. Then we'll rocket forward to the 20th century for a totally different take from Sigmund Freud and his inner critic. And finally, we'll put him head-to-head and see how these two epic theories really stack up.
Okay, first up, the philosophical heavyweight, Thomas Aquinas. For him, the conscience isn't some vague, mysterious feeling. No, it's a powerful tool. Think of it like a moral compass, and one that was given to us by God.
The bedrock of his entire idea is something called natural law. Aquinas was convinced that God literally built a moral code right into the fabric of who we are as human beings. Our whole point, our ultimate purpose, or telos, is to use the brain God gave us to figure out that code and live by it.
So how does this actually play out? Well, Aquinas laid out a pretty clear step-by-step process. It all starts with what he called synderesis. That's just a fancy word for that fundamental instinct we all have to seek out good and stay away from evil. From that starting point, our reason starts to figure out the big general rules, the primary precepts, like, don't kill people and try to live in an orderly society. The real action, the conscience at work, is what he called conscientia. That's when you apply those big rules to a real-life situation. And the result? You get a secondary precept, which is a specific moral decision in that moment.
And this is the key takeaway for Aquinas. Your conscience isn't some little angel on your shoulder whispering in your ear. It is you. It's your own reason, your ratio, actively doing the work of figuring things out. It's a verb. It's something you do, not just a thing you have.
Okay, but what if your reason gets it wrong? I mean, we're only human, right? Aquinas thought about that too. He said there are two kinds of mistakes. First, there's vincible ignorance. This is when you mess up, but frankly, you could have and should have known better. That's a sin. But then, there's invincible ignorance. This is when you make a mistake, but there was no way you could have known any differently. And in that case, you get a pass.
All right, now let's hit the fast-forward button. We're jumping ahead about 700 years, leaving theology behind and landing in Vienna. Because for Sigmund Freud, that voice in your head isn't divine at all. It's actually something much, much closer to home.
You see, Freud saw the mind as this constant three-way tug-of-war. You got the id, which is all your primal, unconscious desires. Then there's the ego, which is your conscious self trying to deal with reality. And then you have the superego. And for Freud, that superego is the conscience. It's basically an internalized collection of all the rules you've soaked up from your parents and the world around you.
So, according to Freud, when you feel that pang of guilt, it's not some divine judgment. No, it's a psychological echo of your mom, your dad, your teachers, all those authority figures whose rules and values you unconsciously absorbed or introjected when you were a little kid.
And get this inner critic isn't something you're born with. It's built, piece by piece, as you grow up. Freud believed that each stage of childhood, from learning self-control during potty training to figuring out family dynamics, adds another layer. It keeps building and building until by the time you're an adult, it's like society's rulebook has been fully installed in your head.
Okay, so now we've got two radically different theories on the table. One says the conscience is a rational link to God. The other says it's a psychological leftover from your childhood. So, let's have a showdown.
When you put them side by side, man, the contrast is just wild. Let's look at the source. For Aquinas, it's God and his natural law. For Freud, it's society and your childhood. What about its nature? Aquinas says it's your reason discovering a real truth. Freud says it's just the bossy voice of authority living rent-free in your head. And the goal? For Aquinas, it's all about fulfilling our divine purpose. For Freud, it's way more practical. Just keep society from falling apart. And this leads to the biggest question of all. Can you trust it? Aquinas says you absolutely must follow your conscience, even if it's mistaken. Freud would say, no way. It's often an unhealthy and totally unreliable guide.
But look, neither of these theories gets off scot-free. Aquinas' view runs into some really tough questions. First, the problem of evil. I mean, if we're all naturally wired to do good, how do you even begin to explain atrocities like the Holocaust? Then there's the culture problem.
If natural law is universal, why did different societies have wildly different ideas about right and wrong? Even other theologians pushed back, with guys like Karl Barth arguing that relying so much on human reason is basically making an idol out of our own minds.
Freud, on the other hand, takes a beating from the scientific community. Critics like Karl Popper basically said his theories are unfalsifiable. You can't actually design an experiment to prove them right or wrong. Plus, he built these huge, sweeping ideas based on a very small, very specific group of his own patients, not exactly a diverse sample, you know? But to be fair, his ideas weren't a total bust. Later research, like the work of psychologist Jean Piaget, did show that our moral sense seems to develop in stages as we grow up, which does kind of lend some support to Freud's model.
So, after all of that, where do we land? Is there a clear winner in this intellectual battle for what that little voice really is?
What's pretty fascinating is that Freud didn't just dismiss religion entirely. He saw it as a useful tool, at least historically. He basically said that for a long time, religious rules did a great service for civilization by helping to tame our more, let's say, asocial instincts. But, and this is a huge but for Freud, he thought it was a primitive tool that we should eventually outgrow. His big idea was that a mature, modern society should move beyond what he called the pretended sanctity of religion. Instead of relying on divine commands, we should use our own reason to collectively decide on the rules that make for a good society. A conscience we choose, not one that's forced on us.
And that brings us right back to the beginning. We've got two incredibly powerful, yet totally different explanations for that voice in your head. Is it Aquinas' divine compass, our reason tuning into a moral law that's woven into the very fabric of the universe? Or is it Freud's inner critic, just a psychological echo of your childhood, policing your every move? It's a huge question, and maybe, at the end of the day, the final verdict is up to you.